You don't have to host your podcast alone. Coming up with topics, managing all of the ins and outs of executing a great episode. It's exhausting to plan all of that while you're running a business and trying to live your life. There is an easier way. And that's why today we're talking with Dennis Meador, Dennis DM, who runs the Legal Podcast Network and helps lawyers deal with this exact problem. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about some guesting strategy and how to build a brand that stands out. So welcome into It's Not Just Talking. This is where we help coaches, consultants, people who are the face of the business, power their marketing through podcasting. I'm your executive producer, Vince Quinn, and here's our conversation with DM. DM, one of the main things that you're doing, looking at the Legal Podcast Network, what I absolutely love is you're really big on having hosts be a part of the show with the client, the business owner. And so can you explain, why do you do that? Why is that such an important part of what you provide?
So we live by the mantra of better, faster, less friction. I've worked with attorneys now for 20-something years. I've been in marketing for about 30 years. And what I've learned with business owners is they're very busy. The easier you make it for them and the less decisions they have to make, the more successful you are likely to be. So as I was kind of coming up with this concept, I was just thinking through attorneys, and again, having worked with them 20 years, the types of things. And I mostly work with small, solo practitioners as my primary target, what we call 1 to 10s. 10 in the office, usually one attorney, maybe 2 or 3. But I realized that if I go to an attorney and I say, hey, we want to help you have a podcast, and you have to source the guests, and you have to put the questions together, but we'll do the production, I didn't think that would be nearly as appealing as, hey, we have a content director, we have a co-host that's going to ask you questions. All you have to do, we'll send you the questions a week early. All you have to do is show up and talk. So we wanted to just make it as little friction for these experts in their marketplaces to be able to share their expertise without having to have technical expertise and marketing expertise and everything else that we have.
Yeah, the simplicity is everything. I mean, you can just really feel in a lot of times decision fatigue when things aren't familiar to you. Like, for example, I'm getting ready right now. So I'm going to be heading to Japan for my honeymoon. And one of the things that people told me about that was basically you will get so much more tired faster because, you already have no idea where you are. So I've never been there before. I have no idea where I'm going. I don't know the language. So trying to read anything, all the different street signs, any menu, all the things that you just passively take in. Like if you're looking down the street, you can be like, oh, that's a deli, that's a pizza shop, that's a post office. You just register it. And when it's just I got to process a million things. I got to figure out this topic. I got to figure out a hook and a call to action and it's exhausting. So yeah, I just love the approach of that. And I would figure the longevity as well. Because so many people, they start a podcast and quit, the ease of, hey, this is going to, we're going to make this easy. We're going to put everything around you. I would figure people tend to do it a lot longer.
Yeah, our retention rate is high. And even, with our clients, if they have a complaint, it always starts with, first off, I just want you to know, I love what you're doing. It's great. I just have this one little thing, blah, 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 right? So they like that setup because they don't, it's literally just they don't have to think. We're already sending them questions they pretty much answer on the reg anyway. And they just show up and they can just go. And, like I said, as little friction as possible. We do that internally with the company. If I see friction points, we remove that friction. And anything with our clients, it's the same thing. And I foresaw the challenge. It's challenging enough just to get them to show up, period. To get them to show up with a show in their mind and another guest, we're basically just asking for, basically borrowing their money until they quit and ask for a refund because they never showed up for anything.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. It's always a struggle in that sense. But okay, so then to make it easier for people to fully conceptualize it, just with the way that you do it, because let's say I'm a business owner and I'm interested in having a host work with me on my show. What does that look like? What is that actual relationship, whether it's pre-production or during the episode itself? How does that dynamic work when people work with you?
We have interchangeable hosts. We are moving to a kind of each host becoming their own brand within our company because we started noticing this person would be loved by these three people, but then these three people would say, this is the worst host you have in the network, so we don't want them anymore, So you kind of learn that. So we're basically building out their like bio pages with video and things like that. But essentially the co-host is a piece of the process. We have 40 people in our company, and 2 of them are selling product. So 38 people are doing other things, social media, creating reels, creating shorts, like all the different stuff. The co-host, they get the questions, they show up. And yes, we do work with seasoned co-hosts. We look for at least 5 years of hosting, prefer 7 to 10 years plus. Although, podcasting isn't like that ancient to where you could be like, it's been around forever. But, we'll allow people that had like radio shows and that, then they're podcasting and then they're, coming to us. So what we teach our hosts is it's your job to level out the show. So if the attorney's just, like hyper, just, going crazy, you got to bring down, and kind of bring it down to like a 7 or 8 where it's palatable. If they're like a 2 or 3 and they're just like, well, according to statute number 42.73 of the legal code binding, then we have to have that host who's like, well, that's fantastic. They got to do that. So that's one of the biggest things that our hosts do is just come into the show, look at the client and try to balance them out to make a more palatable show.
Yeah, and that really is the artistry of running a show, right? Like it is, how do you get that chemistry balance and make it a thing where these people are playing off of each other, it's relatable to the listener, they're still getting the information, and they keep coming back. I mean, I saw that so much. So my whole background, I was in sports radio for 10 years. I did corporate sports radio, and we saw that all the time because, and I think it's a great example and very similar to what you do, where for sports radio, it's always athletes. You're bringing in an athlete who, this guy played basketball for 10 years or he played football for 8 years. And now you're saying, okay, well, you did all that. How about you host a radio show for 4 hours a day, 5 days a week? And, and it's just like they're totally in the deep end. They don't know how to form all of these opinions and to manage callers and do a sponsorship read and everything else that goes into it. So these guys were completely drowning. And to be able to say, hey, well, here's this guy who is your radio guy. This is almost your straight man, your professional. They know all of this stuff in and out. I mean, it did become so much easier for the athletes because then their whole thing is just be the expert. Like, give your opinions, talk about your experience, provide all of that, and you're very much doing the same thing with the Legal Podcast Network.
You see that in basically every panel type, discussion show. I mean, even all the way down to inside the NBA. The players are entertaining, but they still have the straight man. You know what I mean? They always still have 1 or 2 straight men in there. I guess we could just use that term,
Sure.
for that position. So yeah, it's definitely just seeing that. I try to, my sales process and my core strength is sales process and product, digital or marketing product development. And, my core process of building like a product or building a sales process or a combination of the two is I sit down and I think of all of the things that they would say, well, yeah, but what about this? Or I don't like that. And I just kind of like, and then I take it to market and then I hear what they say and I adjust the product a little bit and I adjust the presentation a little bit so that we never get to the end of a demonstration and they're saying, well, I don't like this, I don't like that. We've answered all the questions. We've overcome all the objections in a very kind of innocuous way. And now when they're at that decision point, they're just like, well, you answered all my questions. So you're just like, okay, so if I've answered all my questions, all your questions, I'm only asking you one, yes or no. And, it just makes it very simple. And so again, with this product, that's what I tried to do. Every aspect. We started a year ago with 3 pieces of content. For each episode, we now do 30 pieces of content per episode because each of our attorneys, they were just like, we would put the stuff up for them. They'd have nothing else in their social. And it's like, well, no one's going to follow you and you're not putting a call to action. And it's just like, hey, I got a podcast, go find it. And it was just like, it was just like, we connected the dots. We put in like bio links and, where they just, go to Linktree, whatever in the bio, they click on it, goes right to the different formats. And we just had to do that because as we kept working for our attorneys, where was the product falling short? Whether it was our fault or the attorney's fault didn't matter to me. How could we bridge that gap to where the product is now going to be palatable?
Yeah, and that's always the goal, right? I think somebody who is a golden example of this. Do you follow the Savannah Bananas at all?
As a matter of fact, they've been mentioned two or three times in the last few days to me. It's interesting.
That's so funny. So it hasn't been in this kind of context, like being on show talk. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because that's it, right? Like they've nailed that, and just from a marketing standpoint, that's part of why they're so brilliant. It's not just that they actively are doing that, where their whole goal. And the guy's name is Jesse Cole. If you're listening and you're like, who the hell are the Savannah Bananas? It's a baseball team, and they're basically the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball. Is the simplest way to put it. And yeah, their whole thing is, how do we make the fan experience as frictionless and great as possible? And they do that obsessively. And it's not just that they've built a good product, but he's literally built his brand on, we are the remove friction people in sports. So like, just a masterclass of it. And yeah, it absolutely sounds like everything that you're doing, the way you're approaching all of this too. So it makes sense that people are mentioning it to you all the time. And
us, we're the Savannah Bananas of podcasting, or the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball. Don't you know? That'll be my new intro.
yeah. To say, I think this would be hilarious. Yeah, we're the Savannah Bananas of law. What? Yeah, sure. So yeah, that's really great. But to take it a little bit further than too, because one of the things that I like about you, Dennis, and or DM, excuse me, and where we are kindred spirits, is the idea of guesting on shows all the time. And Dennis, I keep doing it. Someday I will learn.
No
this
worries.
This is what happens with prep. I'll figure it out someday. I learn. I'm trainable. I need a squirt bottle in the face. DM. So when it comes to getting on shows, what's your goal for this year?
100 shows. Very simple. 100 shows. I mean, not just any show. I've not been on any crocheting podcasts or any sports podcasts for that matter. It's all been business, marketing, podcasting, mindset. Pretty much is everything that I've been on. But yeah, I wanted to do 100 shows this year just for a few reasons. One was I have an extensive speaking background. I was actually a pastor for 20 years. So I spoke 4 or 5 times a week in public for, from the time I was 16 to the time I was 36 is about the time I was a full-time pastor at 18. And that sort of speaking is so different than being on a podcast, because that sort of speaking is 100% on you. You got 30, 45 minutes. You got to keep 200, 300, 400 people entertained from like 7 years old to 77 years old. So like it so much depends on you. And I was just like, well, wait a minute. Like I might be a good like public speaker when it's just me, but maybe I'm not a great podcaster. And so I wanted to get out and start doing it to become a better speaker in podcasting, which I had my own podcast. But again, when it was about Austin, Texas, food, music, life, like all that fun stuff. But like learning to be a guest, learning to be a better host, be in a back and forth panel sort of situation, it just wasn't my innate training that I had had for decades. So that was one reason I wanted to do it. Secondly, obviously, I want people to know about what we do and why we do it and how we might be able to help them. So my hope was always that success for my company was a byproduct. It was not the main reason. It was to be better at it. And then, I'd like to think that with 30 plus years of entrepreneurship since I was a teenager, 3 or 4 businesses that have done fairly well, having this business that in the first year went from 0 to 150 clients, 0 to 40 people on the team, 0. We did $1 million our first year in revenue. So I feel like I have something to offer, even if it's just going to be taken as opinion.
Yeah. And I mean, it's such a smart thing to do. And you're right about how different it is when you're going from this like large audience in person, all these different ages, to being on a podcast. I mean, I was talking with somebody recently. So they are in sales, phenomenal at it. Like top of the line, cold calling sales guy. So lives on the phone, is doing nothing but talking to people that you can't see him, and everything is just, hey, let me tell you about all this information. I'm going to like cram like 20 minutes of just, I don't know, graduate level sales conversation into this quick thing. And to switch to podcasting, where it's like, well, if you give that amount of information to people in a single episode, like you're going to just melt their brains. They can't even process it. Like you have to simplify and really get more granular. Like, it's such a different delivery, a different process, and it does take time to go and make that switch. But I guess, like, to have that experience as a pastor, I mean, what are some of the things that you think did translate?
Leadership, obviously, as an entrepreneur. I mean, but I've been an entrepreneur the whole time as well, so it's kind of a dual thing. I'd say just the ability to communicate more complex concepts in simpler ways. My big thing is just don't answer for 7-8 minutes. You know, my coach is like, should be 2.5, 3 minutes. I'm like, 2.5, 3 minutes. I can't even like get my intro out in 2.5, 3 minutes to my thought. Like, you know, like my brain likes to meander a little bit before it gets to where it starts getting to where it's going. So I think that the leadership, the communication, I would say also organization, you know, kind of the ability to think through growth, to think through, you know, getting things done and it not being myself. You know, that's a huge, huge task of growing a business, is being willing to delegate. I know you talked about having a lot of solopreneurs. I'm personally of the opinion that there shouldn't be solopreneurs. You should at least have a VA that you can hire, you know, because there are things that we do that take up our time and bandwidth as, you know, the primary person, that if we offshored that, we could literally double our business if we just spent the time doing the things for our business that only we can do. And that's what I tell my team. I'm like, okay, you're hired as a content director. Why on earth are you fixing, you know, ClickUp CRM? Why are you in there fixing notes on that? You're writing content. I pay you X amount of dollars per hour because you have this expertise. Don't do a job that one of our VAs offshore can do. And so, you know, being able to like delegate and organize, I think that's been another area that it really helped me with, transferred over.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what number show am I for this year as you're trying to hit to 100? What do you think? Ballpark?
60, maybe 63, 64. I've done 5 this week, so I haven't, it's been a week or two since I've counted, but yeah, maybe 63, 64, somewhere around there.
Okay, so you're right on track then. You're looking pretty good for 100.
And you know, we're in Podmatch and we're in Matchmaker, and I have one of my VAs who just cranks on there full time and fills out the stuff and gets me on shows. And I'm just like, you know, I just say, hey, make sure this fits, and they know the categories, they do it all. Then I show up, and there we go.
Yeah, and I'm doing the same thing. Matchmaker, Podmatch, just trying to live in it. It's exhausting. So yeah, I don't have a VA or anybody helping with me with that quite yet, but it's definitely on the list. It's like, yeah, because that process is so exhaustive. But the value is great, and that's why I'm always saying to anybody that listens to the show, it's just like, hey, get on other shows, go meet people, go find those audiences, go get the word out, because it's not that these guests are going to always bring the audience to you. A lot of times they don't even promote it, right? Like you got to go to the people if you want to build an audience. So.
For a while there, and I haven't looked recently, but almost every show that I've been on, especially if they're smaller shows, but even some of the bigger shows, because when I go on, I get the raw files and you know, I promote it and I'm like, hey, this is mine. I put it out everywhere. And like, you know, like every show that I've been on, or most of the shows I've seen, we have the highest number. And it's because I'm pushing. I'm just like, hey, in this podcast, and like all my friends and family are like, oh my God, DM, another podcast, dude. We've already heard, we know you went through a hard time from this age. You have 14, you had a business. We get it, you know. But, you know, I heard a phrase once that has really impacted me, because I used to kind of be a little embarrassed about the fact that I don't have a problem promoting what I'm doing, who I am. And I read somewhere something to the effect that the most successful people in life are shameless self-promoters. And so I was just like, you know what? Fuck everybody. Sorry, I don't know. You can beat this.
You can beat this
so you don't
want.
lose your rating.
No, DM, we're going to pause for a second. We're going to pause for 1 second. Fuck. All right, go ahead. Continue.
Right. So I'm just like, you know, fuck all these people who are doing nothing with their life, criticizing me, and then me allowing it to affect me. So I'm just like, you know, just tunnel vision straight ahead. And if people want to praise me, I'll take the pat, but I keep walking. I don't stand there and enjoy it. And if people want to slap me upside the face, I'll take it and I'll just keep walking. It doesn't matter.
If you're looking for more ways to grow your business through podcasting, Sign up for the SBX newsletter. The link is right here in the show notes, and each week in your inbox, you're going to get tips, opinions, strategies, all the things that we talk about here on the show in your inbox. The SBX newsletter right here in the show notes. It was one of those things that it took me a while to get around to the promotional aspect, and it was more of a philosophical thing where I had to figure out and find a thing that I was doing that I truly believed in and felt authentic to me. And that was really the biggest struggle of all of it. I mean, it took me probably 3.5 years of owning the business to really find that. But once I did, then it was easy because it's like, no, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is completely what I believe. I'm all about it. I've dedicated my life to it. So I'll talk about it anywhere, and I'm not shy about it because I believe in it. Like this is it for me. And I think that's really where it becomes simple for everything that we've talked about, right? Like it's easy then to get on shows and present yourself in all of these different aspects because you know what your core message is and how it relates to that audience. Like you can find that. It's easy to sell it. It's easy to find topics day to day for your own podcast. And I think, and something else that I want to talk with you a little bit about now would be that idea of sameness, right? Like there's so many things when it comes to sameness in marketing and how do you fight that? When you find that unique thing where everything feels natural and it's easy to be self-promotional, then, you found your lane. So I know DM, you're working on the show and it's a new show and fighting sameness. So just tell me a little bit more about that.
So I'm of the opinion that podcasting is like any other media venue. So if you look back at like the history of radio, in the beginning, it was just like pretty boring. Like if we listened to like 1920, 30s radio, the entertainment value wasn't there. It was just, it just get something on there. Television, same thing. Look back at the 40s and 50s and 60s and look at television show, the Lawrence Welk show, one set, nothing. But then as time progressed and these mediums became more accepted into society as a whole, the production value started going up so people could separate themselves. And then with production value going up, then they were like, oh, we also need to entertain these people. And so we have podcasting, which has traditionally just been a value proposition deliverance mechanism. And I think because so many people, Gen Z and Alpha, trust TikTok and podcasts. Those are the only two that they trust now. So knowing that the future is podcasting and knowing all of this, what we've tried to do is create shows that are going to have good content with good production value, high production value, and some entertainment to them, even if they're like silly subjects. So, for example, the show, and I think you're B-rolling it now, it's called BAM, Building Authority Through Media. And the premise is very simple. You are a business owner. There's all these ways that you can promote yourself: YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn. Some help you on Google, but Google's going to be gone with GEO and all of this different stuff that's happening. So with this show, what I wanted to show people is if you can take a unpalatable subject, and our first series is 4 shows, Journey Through the Land of LinkedIn. And so we basically take and we go through, the first one is about content. And it's like clout content and lack of confidence content. And this lady's like a LinkedIn lawyer. I got all these like LinkedIn lawyer influencers. They're not lawyers. They're LinkedIn. Most of them used to be lawyers, and now they full-time work on LinkedIn. It's just amazing when you kind of get out there and you're just like, and it's not just one of them. There's like a lot of them. A lot. Yeah. There's probably a few dozen of them. But, I got them on the show and we just like kind of talked about the different aspects of LinkedIn, but in like a way that's like delivered to where it's going to make you laugh a little. You're going to see kind of silly things, but you're going to learn something from it. So that's really what we try to do as a company. And even with our clients, like we have a format, we have a set format. And honestly, it's not about, we don't have cartoons and all of those sort of things. But with our clients, we try to have a very high production value, adding that co-host. So we try to make it more conversational. So it's not just an attorney standing there, quoting law and saying what they need to do. And, so taking sort of those principles, and then you talk about conquering sameness. That is something that most professionals are guilty of. So if I'm a coach, I know that, this is a show that coaches listen to. That's my understanding you said. So if
Yeah.
I'm a coach, instead of going and looking at 50 brands of other coaches and then coming up with my brand, that's just being more of the same. More often than not, people are just going to shut off their ears to it because they hear that familiar cadence, that familiar terminology, and they're just like, yeah. It becomes like Charlie Brown teacher.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the whole problem is so many people are like, but I need to be as broad and accessible as possible. And so how do I do that if I'm not using the same language as everybody else? And it's like, yeah, that is the complete wrong thing. So yeah, I can't agree with that enough. As I'm always telling people like, hey, be selfish sometimes about what you're talking about. Like, what is your viewpoint? Don't worry about, and this is really for any kind of show. This can be business or entertainment, but people tend to say, this is a big news story, so we have to talk about it. And it's like, well, if you think some other story that nobody's talking about is way more interesting, then you're the only person talking about that. Like, that's your value. You should be willing to say, I don't think that's nearly as interesting as this thing, and so I'm going to explain why this thing is way more interesting because that's where I care. And the other people that get that and agree with you, they will find that and connect to that. So yeah, be selfish, pick things that you think are interesting, and the results come.
I think you also have to decide, is your show a show that's just chasing the algorithm, or is your show one that's trying to connect with clients? Because those don't always coincide.
Yeah.
I could put my lawyers on and let them talk about Trump all the time and just more Trump this, and they'd probably get more clicks and things that they're getting, but they're never going to get a client. I use the illustration with attorneys. I'm like, listen, let me ask you a question. Let's just build a scenario, because one of the questions they'll ask is, can you help us go viral? As if it's something that marketers just keep in their back pocket, right? Like,
yeah,
well, I've done this for 30 years. Obviously, I know how to go viral. And first of all, there's no set term for viral, but let's just say 1 million plus, right? So let's say an attorney or a coach or anybody, right, in their podcast, they get 3 million views on their YouTube show version of their podcast. So YouTube gives approximately 1,000 to 2,000 per million. So let's just split the difference, say 1,500. You made $4,500. Okay, good job, attorney. You're probably going to have that happen once, but you made $4,500 off that video. But let me ask you this, attorney, coach, whatever, that has a ticketed offer item. If each client is worth 5,000, let's just say a client's worth 5,000. Is it better to have 3 million people and get $4,500 from YouTube and no clients, or 30 people watching your show? They all fit your target client profile. 10 of them call you and 7 of them hire you. Now, you've made 35,000 instead of 4,500, but when you look at your YouTube screen, it only says 30 versus 3 million. When we start thinking like that as business owners, because at the end of the day, as business owners, we aren't going to have to close our company because of the amount of views or downloads or listens. We're going to have to close our companies if we don't get revenue and clients. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that. And especially 100%. In marketing.
It's always how it goes. And so as a pastor, you're preaching, my friend. I mean, that's exactly
I get into that. I have to apologize to my team sometimes because I'll be, all right, guys, we're going, I'll just get going crazy. So if I rant a little, just excuse me.
But that's it. That's everything. It's the kind of thing that I talk about a lot on this show. I mean, it's really one of the core principles. If you look at the description for this show, it's literally, the first sentence I think is, forget sponsors, go sell more. Like, that's literally the description for the entire show. That's how we get to it. So it's right to the point, and that's everything. So yeah, and you see that with all the things that you've put together. I mean, the ease of the way that you're designing the entire structure of the show around these people to go and execute the content and get it out in a way that's palatable and engaging with the right energy to be able to spread this word out in all these different places with your specific voice. Like, it all comes together through that. And so that's why I thought it was so important to get you on, because you are like the example of what it should be to do this right. So just from somebody who...
Thank you very much.
100%. Yeah, very happy to say it, because it's true. Like, just looking at your site and everything you put together, it's like, this guy totally gets it. Would absolutely love to talk to him. Think he would be a great guest. So DM, thank you so much again for joining the show. Great conversation. Really appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Hope we get to visit maybe on one of my shows or visit here again someday soon.
Yeah, and so for people who want to keep up with you, where should they go?
The easiest thing for right now, because for some reason I'm in LinkedIn jail. I've had it for 17 years, 4,000 followers, and all of a sudden one day I get up, it's gone. And so I'm like appealing that process. I used to send everybody to my LinkedIn. I might have to start over. So you'll still be able to find me soon. But just go to our website, thelegalpodcastnetwork.com. Or if you want to see, just go right into our content. You can go onto YouTube or any of the major outlets, any of the podcast outlets, depending on how you listen, just audibly or watch the video as well. Type in thelegalpodcastnetwork.com. I know on YouTube we have it into different playlists, and the bottom playlist is, so we have like clients, and then we also have a lot of people that serve attorneys. And then we have the shows that I've appeared on as well. So any of those that might interest you, whether it be attorneys, answers, whether it be business, like help for your business, or just, listening to me rant about lawyer podcasting for 30 minutes to 45 minutes, whatever.
Hey, well, you're the Savannah Bananas of law, right? That's
exactly
what it is. So that's what
exactly.
we're here for.
No, but you got to add. I like going. I'm the Savannah Bananas of law, which is the baseball version of the Harlem Globetrotters. I like those really long descriptors because then just people, it confuses them and they're just like, wait, what was that? And then they have to think.
Yeah, it's you got to keep people on their toes is really
Exactly.
the goal. That's what it's all about sometimes. All right, well, DM, thanks so much, man. Appreciate you.
Vince, let's catch a baseball game soon.
Deal.